Jill Falcon Ramaker is an assistant professor in community nutrition and sustainable food systems, and also the director for the Buffalo Nation's Food System Initiative over at Montana State University. Um, Sorry, I lost my place here. Especially I think this Buffalo Nations initiative is really neat. The initiative serves the Buffalo Nation's biocultural region of the Northern Plains and Rockies, including 3 Canadian provinces and 5 U.S. states. She notably studies food systems in Indigenous communities. Her research lies in the restoration of balance in human natural systems, buffalo return, Indigenous land practices, heirloom seed propagation and stewardship, the buffalo culture seasonal round, cultural identity, Indigenous wellness, and biocultural diversity. She's a mother of 3 and a member of the I can't pronounce this from Roseau River First Nation. Jill, you're gonna have to take it from me from there.
Okay, thank you so much, Kyle. Can you see my presenter view or my actual screen?
We're looking at presenter view right now. We still see your speaker notes, yeah.
Okay, now.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. Let's see what we can do here. All right.
And I'll say it's Minwewe Wiggin. That's what
Bojo, Nindiname Maganaro, Bishkane Mishtadam, Aquay, and Daga, Makwan Dodam, Mikanakwaji, and Dunjaba, Nishnabe, Quay, Midday, and Aquay, and Daga. Miigwech, everyone, I'm just so grateful to be here this afternoon. My name is Jill Falcon Ramaker. My Anishinaabe name is Flaming Horsewoman, and I come from the Bear Clan of the Turtle Mountain Anishinaabe. And I am a member of Minwewe Wigan, good sounding lodge at Roseau River First Nation. And I'm really grateful to be here today. I'm also director of the Buffalo Nation's Food System Initiative, as Kyle mentioned. I am an assistant professor in community nutrition and sustainable food systems over here at beautiful Montana State University in the mountains. And I like to, this is the furthest in our most recent Anishinaabe migration across Turtle Island, the one that was going westward. We ended up out here, my family ended up all the way out here as we followed the buffalo. So I like to call this Anishinaabe Walkie West, which is not a gated community, but it's a beautiful place. And so I say hello from the mountains to all of you across this beautiful place. And I want to say Chi-miigwech, especially to Kyle and to Kim and to Peter and to all the organizers. And I also want to say Chi-miigwech to Robin, our Anishinaabe Kwe, who opened up for us, who got the music going today and got us thinking. And I'm really excited to share back with you some thoughts on worldview, because this is a really important part of the story. So you can consider my contribution today as part of the story is to tell you how we got here, and then to tell you a bit how we're going back along that trail to pick up our pieces. And as Robin mentioned, our prophecy of the 7 fires. So in the biocultural region of the Northern Plains and Rockies, the great disruption of colonization generated a radical transition from the longest sustained food system on Turtle Island, the buffalo culture food system or seasonal round, to the dominance of industrial agriculture over this biocultural web. And these 2 food systems originate from differing worldviews and accompanying economic structures, the capitalist market economy and the kinship network of exchange, symbolized in my telling of the story by 2 shapes, a circle and a straight line. So from this lens, I'll share the work of the efforts of Buffalo Nation's Food System Initiative here at Montana State University to rebuild relationships in this biocultural region. We are aligned with the Buffalo Treaty, and we are working for intertribal food sovereignty in the footprint of our traditional food system, spanning 3 Canadian provinces and 5 US states. So I'm going to begin here. So in the early 1700s, my relatives, Anishinaabe, were living in this region just to the west of the Great Lakes and going on up to Lake Winnipeg. My fifth great grandmother, Songab, whose name means standing strong, was the Grand Nokomis of the Red Lake, Anishinaabe. The folks from Red Lake, there in what is now Minnesota. And for a while, she was married to a newcomer named Peter Grant, who in the small red circle that you see on this slide, he ran a trading post there at what is now Pembina, or the community of Pembina in North Dakota. And they had a relationship that really represents these two economies. Songab came to this relationship in an alliance with newcomers that would give her an advantage, and her family and her band an advantage in cooperation with the new economy in trading. And for Peter Grant, he came to this land very much dependent, because newcomers were very poor in their community connection and in their ancestral knowledge of place. And so they were very much dependent on those who lived in the seasonal round. So he joined our family and became part of this indigenous seasonal round. So in this area, we followed the seasonal round, and we had so many beautiful foods. In our hungry time, we were tapping those trees like this time of year with that beautiful gift of maple sap that became, with lots of effort, maple sugar. We were growing corn and beans and squash in our gardens. We were hunting, trapping, fishing, and harvesting berries. We were also hunting buffalo. But as the boundaries of the settler colonial arrival got stronger and stronger, and the trading increased with intensification, the web of relationship fell out of balance. And our people began feeling the pull, the support of the buffalo farther out on the plains. So our seasonal round stretched out. And here on the plains, we were participating in that longest sustained lifeway, the buffalo culture's lifeway, which was more than 13,000 years. And this was a very sophisticated, methodical, annual series of movements on the land to tend and harvest wild plants, to fish and cultivate and trade food and knowledge with our relatives. So this is a place-based food system, and often it's been named as a hunter-gatherer society with a more diminutive notion of the sophistication of this foodway, equating it to savage lifeways or somehow uncivilized. But I can say that after my long study of the way that we ate in the past, there is this incredible organization of the people, a division of labor, that really helped us to do this work. And we had knowledge that was passed down over millennia, generation to generation, knowledge of place that our ancestors passed to us. And we retained that on a life or death basis, and I wish my high schooler studied in that way still. But as those newcomers relied on us for abundance, we were producing so much indigenous food. So much so that when those newcomers, those latecomers, Lewis and Clark, showed up in 1805 at the Mandan villages on the upper Missouri, they were able to pick up 2,500 pounds of dried corn because it was just a surplus of that food system. So the seasonal round was also a cycle following the path laid by the ancestors, who, honoring reciprocal obligations to place, sought to maintain the sacred balance amongst all relations. So as we harvested, we prayed, making reciprocal offerings to the plants, the animals, the water, the soil, to maintain a circle of giving. As my Blackfoot mentor, Dr. Leroy Little Bear, states, food is just the product of our way of life. The system is our culture. So here you see a diagram that's showing you elements of that buffalo culture way of life, our ways of connecting to the land, our language, our way of thinking, our way of being, our way of relating. And all of these put together as an intact worldview is what we call a culturally constituted world, something that leads our food system, undergirds our food system. And as I said, as we moved across the land, we made offerings. Our food system was not merely about sustenance, it was also movement through a sacred landscape. Fasting was an important land practice as well, as it put us in alignment with the spiritual and natural worlds. The thirsty dance, or the sun dance, was organized collectively by many nations, particularly by one of our leaders, Big Bear, who really represented us by calling together these thirsty dances so that as the buffalo were going away, we could bring ourselves in alignment with one another, dancing for the rain to feed the grass, to feed the buffalo, to feed the people. So this was a ceremony, was very much a part of our food system. Ceremony and annual visits to sacred sites like this inscribed stone and medicine wheels helped us to maintain our way of life. The land was of utter significance to the people. So Earth Elder, whose teachings were recorded by Alexander Wolf, acknowledged that the Anishinaabe relationship with land was not one of ownership, but one of responsibility. And he said, Earth Elder, our fathers periodically journeyed south to the hill country where Asiniseo rock with written symbols, is found. There they would fast and pray. They believed that the symbols on the rock at this spot described the level on which the Indian was placed at the time of creation, a level that defined his responsibility and role in future times. So this place that Earth Elder is speaking of is Riding Rock, and it's near the borders of Montana, North Dakota, and Saskatchewan, where they all come together. And it's an example of what we could call a focal point of spiritual power, a place of ritual observance and storytelling that helped us maintain the relationship between humans and the landscape, or the whole web of life. Anishinaabe law, our natural law, requires that we work to maintain that balance in the web of life. And as our sister, as Robin mentioned earlier today, maintaining that balance is very important. And we're in a time right now where we've lost that balance. The extractive economy has impacted the balance in the web of relations. We're in a time which Anishinaabe call onjiseaki, or changing earth time. And you can see that imbalance when you see that there's too much heat energy in the oceans, too much fire in the water, that imbalance that's causing these incredible drying cycles of convection that are causing massive storms and massive forest fires along the coastal ranges. So we're in a time where the extractive system has caused this imbalance, but for the Anishinaabe, we've been adapting to that extractive economy for hundreds of years. Climate change is just one more step in that imbalance from our point of view. So this is a story of two economies. The Anishinaabe practiced the kinship network of exchange, which was a form of economic system based on reciprocity and relationship, which has been much mentioned today. And with the arrival of the settlers on Turtle Island, the Anishinaabe were faced with contingencies like participating in the new industrial colonial economy. That colonial economy was always hungry for new resources. First the furs, then also robes and hides, minerals, forests, arable land, fossil fuel. So for quite some time, Anishinaabe lived between these two economies until the settler economy emptied the land of the one that they knew to be their source of life and impoverished the kinship network of exchange. So in 1858, when meeting with the Cree Council, Henry Yule Hind heard an elder say, one who had lived for already 100 winters. He said, when his people were as numerous as the buffalo now, and the buffalo thick as trees in the forest. His words connect the well-being of the people and the buffalo. And as the colonial system was passing over the people their sovereignty, the one who had stood with them for millennia was disappearing. When a culture loses its connection with its way of being, the regenerative sources of life, What is lost is sovereignty. So to the degree that a nation loses its sense of cultural identity, to the degree it suffers a sense of sovereignty. That's something that Vine Deloria pointed out. And so our cultural identity, our connection to that one, Geshe Bishiki, grandfather buffalo, who stood for us for millennia, our cultural identity was there. And that really is a source of our sovereignty. If we contrast that settler colonial market economy to the Anishinaabe kinship network of exchange, I think that one of the most powerful ways of thinking about the difference between these two worldviews, these two economies, is thinking about the giveaway ceremony. And giveaway ceremonies have been done for a long time in the past and are done in the present by many nations across this region. And what happens with a giveaway ceremony is we call people together in our community. And it may be people that we know, and it may be some people that we don't know. And what we do is we gather up all this wealth, all these gifts, and it might be household items and blankets and towels and kitchen items and dishes, and it might be cash as well. And to honor something that has happened good, maybe someone healed, maybe someone had a new baby or a new job, we give away all these things to our community. And this is how things were done in the past too. When we distributed meat from a hunt, we give away everything. And then some comes back to the hunter's family, a little bit from each lodge. And with the giveaway ceremony, we give away everything. Okay, and so where is equity located in a community that works in that kind of economy? The equity is located amongst the community. It means I'm going to give you all this, and in the future, you'll have my back, I'll have your back. So there's this social covenant, which is remarkably different than the accumulation of wealth in the settler colonial or capitalist market system. This colonial system that was capable of running over an entire many pre-existing food systems and economies is a complicated system that involved empire, like the countries of Great Britain, France, and America, forces of extraction, corporate forces, corporate companies, and then colonial tools like Christianity and empirical science and military force. And so it was a complicated web that came over the biocultural region that changed things dramatically. And I think that what I really would want you to take away is that our relationship with the land, our relationship with one another, that worldview really matters when we come to understand that web of relationship, our ways of seeing, our ways of knowing, our ways of being. And the settler colonial worldview is based on ways of knowing and seeing. Some of them are science and enlightenment thinking. That science and enlightenment thinking is interested in classification of people, plants, and animals. So we saw in the Great Plains the sorting of people into reserves or reservations. Some of us were highly allied with each other, intermarried, and we didn't fit well into those boxes that wanted to separate us. It's the same with plants and animals, separated through systems of classification. Then you add the Christian dogmas of Christian dominion theory, which has this concept of humans having dominion over all else, or manifest destiny, which says that European races are destined or ordained by God to expand their dominion. Worldview matters because the outcome matters. And the outcome that I see coming from that worldview is straight lines. So you see here a map of Montana land designated under the Homestead Acts, divided up into a million little boxes, right? Some other straight lines that come out of this worldview are race structure, borders, hierarchies within the web of relations, market indexes, furrows, grid lines on the map, rail lines, monocrops. In contrast, Our worldview was one that worked in circles. We always work in circles. This is the yearly cycle of the buffalo, our great teacher in this food system. They traveled from the parkland in the north to in the spring out onto the prairie. In the summer, they gathered in the grasslands, and in the fall, they moved into, they grazed their ways along the mountains and back to the parkland. This is a view from Henry Yule Hind that I mapped of his report on the great herd in 1851. And so here you see they're wintering over in the north and between the North and South Saskatchewan, this great herd. And he talked about them moving across the land, like digging these deep ruts into the land as they went down to the river and back up out of the river. In the spring, they would move out to the area of the Capel Valley, this great herd. Then in the fall, they'd make their way south to the confluence of the Missouri and the Yellowstone over here. And then in the fall, they'd come all the way up the Yellowstone and start up this Rocky Mountain front. And as I studied this, I thought, they're carving a medicine wheel right on Turtle Island. They're showing us the way to move. And I mentioned that to Dr. Leroy Littlebear, and he said, yes, and they're leading us to the plants we need at the time that we need them. So our world always moved in circles. But with the Great Disruption, those circles have been cut through by rail lines, by boundaries, by all these straight lines. If you look at this photograph, this is an amazing aerial photograph taken over North Dakota. And it shows those deep ruts those buffalo carved into the land, those circles that they were carving on the land as they grazed their way around and moved in the seasonal round. And you see it overlaid with croplands and strip crops and furrows. So we think about the way that worldview matters and the difference it makes in our relationship to land. And we can think about the cost of that. There's a great cost in the loss of biodiversity. And as one's concerned with sustainability, you can see that the cost in the shift from one economy to another comes with colonizing the web of relations, that we've not only lost many relatives, human and other than human, but we've also lost hundreds of indigenous cultures that have been suppressed, including their land practices, their ceremonies, their languages, and their knowledge systems. And we've replaced that with a lot of artificial boundaries that have been built to separate us and to cut us off from our life's purpose, such as the work of the buffalo on the prairie, or the beavers with the water, or just the work that the water has to do that's caught behind dams. Worldview matters, and many have acted like we were never here. Indigenous erasure is a reality that continues to go on. This is an advertisement from a 2015 issue of National Geographic, all about firsts, first human, anyway, firsts all over the world. But if you read the article, the advertisement, it says in 1865, the American Midwest was a blank canvas poised for transformation. The idea that we didn't exist is still there. But we have this knowledge, indigenous knowledge, these worldviews, and they're very important to the healing of Turtle Island. And so here at Montana State University, we're in the process of doing cultural knowledge regeneration. It's not, we feel that we're in a time of indigenous renaissance. This is a beautiful time, and we're coming home to the land. That loss of identity, that loss of sovereignty, by us coming home to the land and the land knowing us, we know ourselves again. And so here you see our students who are planting seeds in the MSU Horticulture Farm plot, one of 4 plots that we have. And this is where we do ancestral seed propagation. Then we send out 200 seed bundles to indigenous gardeners across our region each spring. Those are getting ready to ship just next week. And so we're working in that footprint of our traditional food system, where we not only traded food, we traded knowledge, words in our language, and ceremonies with each other. We were a community of relatives on the Northern Plains and Rockies. And you see this region in the subset map up here, where we worked together. On our website, we have an ArcGIS map with many different layers that's meant to help people see one another in the land in relationship to one another again, with fresh eyes. And we're really interested in building back that native knowledge network that made our food system work in the past. Feeling that we can change policies, we can recover knowledge better together than alone. So we're working proactively for collaborative food sovereignty. And we're doing that by credentialing Indigenous students who want to work in the food system, or any students wanting to work in the food system. These are some of the programs that we've created. Most of them are happening as land-based and community-based educational, and many of them on the seasonal ecological model, so that they're learning to work with the seasons. We're also doing a lot of research, which is cultural knowledge recovery, which will support intertribal food sovereignty. We always need that data. We need that knowledge. We need that knowledge of our ways to bring us back to be able to bring our values to the food system. And so we hope that you will get involved. That's just like the tip of the iceberg of some of the things that we're doing. But we really want to support intertribal food sovereignty across this biocultural region, and to work with many relatives as we build back that kinship network of exchange and build a vibrant 21st century Indigenous food system. And so with that, I say Chi-miigwech. Thank you for listening.
Miigwech, Miigwech, Jill. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, even my dog's excited.